Hello, and welcome to the session on course of action, or rather, courses of action, or rather, statement and courses of action. Well, we'll discuss that in detail in this session. Hi, I'm Ravi, and my Twitter handle is @RaviHanda. You can use that to get in touch and provide feedback. In this particular session, we'll talk about what is the format of questions when they are asked in this category, what are the type of questions that are asked, and obviously we'll look at some solved examples to clarify the concepts to you. Now, to begin with, first of all, let us have a look at the format. What happens is, in each question, you are given a statement which is followed by two courses of action, number one and two. You have to assume everything in the statement to be true, and on the basis of the information given in the statement, you have to decide which of the courses of action logically follow. So essentially, you'll have one statement and two courses of action, and then depending upon the choices, you'll have to suggest which choice to mark depending upon which statements follow. Two of the most common choices that are possible are given here. As you can see, there's very little difference between the two of them, but I'll still elaborate. In case of five options, it can be only one follows, only two follows, either of them follow, neither of them follow, and both follow. Another type of set could be that only one follows, only two follow, both of them follow, neither of them follow, and the data given is insufficient, inadequate, and something like that. So these are couple of types. There can be many more types of combinations which are possible, but these two are the most popular types of options. So once again, as far as the format is concerned, you'll be given one statement and you'll be given two courses of action. You'll have to decide which one of the two or both of them follow. Now, let us look at the type of questions which get come. One very common type is that you'll be given a problem and then you will have to suggest a solution to it as to which of the courses of action which are given will lead to the solution. Or another one could be that a particular situation is given and then you have to suggest its improvements. Or which courses of actions can you take which will lead to an improvement. Now, when you are picking the course of action to follow, there are a couple of things that you should keep in mind. One, and probably the most important as well as the obvious one, that the course of action should actually solve the problem or improve the situation. Another point is that it should be practically possible. Let's say one course of action is given which would maybe take care of the problem, but it is not a practical solution. So you have to keep that practicality in mind as well. Some of the good ways to figure out which is course of action can be followed and not are these. Is it an established fact? Because if it is, it can be a very valid course of action. Is it validated by experience? If something is validated by experience, that can also be considered as a valid course of action. Is it logical? Well, any course of action that you are going to follow has to be logical. You cannot, that's why this comes under logical reasoning sometimes. Moving on to some of the solved examples, because till now we just had a little bland theory. I think nothing works better than solved examples in case if you want to learn statements and courses of action. So before I move ahead and give you the solution, I request you to pause the video and try and figure out in both these statements which of the courses of action follow. Okay, I guess you would have solved them by now. Let's see. What does the statement say? The statement says the secretary lamented that the electronic media was losing its credibility and that it should try to regain it by establishing better communication with the listeners and the viewers. He also emphasized the need for training to improve the functioning. So that is the complete statement which is given to you. You have to consider that as a fact, you have to consider that as true. Now, Which of the course of action would you recommend? The first course of action mentioned is effort should be made to get organized feedback on the program. Statement 2 is the critical areas in which the staff requires training should be identified. Now, which one would you recommend? The first one or the second one or both of them or neither of them? Well, you should recommend both of them because to gauge the quality of something, to improve it, you should first of all you need to gather feedback on the program. Only then you can improve it. Also, the areas, the need for training has been emphasized, but where are you going to improve it? Where are you going to give training? For that, the areas need to be identified. So, essentially, in this particular question, both the courses of action follow, and you should mark both as the answer. In the second one, the statement says there have been many instances of derailment of trains due to landslide in the hilly areas, which caused loss of many lives. So, well, this is a very problematic situation which needs to improve. This is essentially a type 2. Now, which course of action would you recommend? The first course of action is the passenger authority should arrange to deploy pilot engines before the movement of the passenger trains in the hilly areas to alert the trains in case of any landslide. Sounds like a very reasonable idea because that would prevent and maybe they'll be able to predict bad rails and might be able to prevent a few accidents and derailments. The other idea is the railway authority should strengthen the hill slopes by putting iron meshes so that the loose boulders do not fall on the track. Again, it is a very reasonable idea because the problem of derailment was happening because of boulders which are falling on the track, leading to derailments and a host of other problems. So, which course of action would you recommend in this case? Both of them sound like a good idea. So, what should you do? Well, in this one, you would mark either of them. See, because either you will implement the first one, either you will improve the rail part of things, or you would improve the hill slope part of things. There is no need to improve both of them. The problem can be improved, the problem can be tackled by doing either one of them. And doing both of them would be overwork, unnecessary overwork. So you should mark either in this case, that either you will improve the status of the rails or you will strengthen the hill slopes, but not both. That is the key difference between the first one and the second one. In the first one, both of them were required. In the second one, you can get away with either of them. And let's say if you were a manager and this was presented to you, then you should suggest only one of the following and not both of the following. Let's look at a few more questions. The statement says courts take too long in deciding important disputes of various departments. Well, that is something that we all know. The course of action suggested as courts should be ordered to speed up matters, a valid suggestion. Special power should be granted to officers to settle disputes concerning their own departments. Well, once again, it seems like both of them are very valid and very good courses of action, and both should be suggested. Because one, what will happen is that the court, if they are ordered to speed up matters, they'll be able to take care of more cases. And in the second one, the number of cases that come to the court, they'll get reduced because officers will be granted special powers. So both the actions are recommended, or both the actions should be followed. The next one is footpath of a busy road are crowded with vendors selling cheap items. That is again a reality in any big city that you go to in India. Courses of action which are suggested are the help of police should be sought to drive them away. Okay, a little harsh, but that is essentially what happens. This is something which experience validates. I'm sure you must have seen something like this. The second statement says some space should be provided to them, that is the vendors, where they can earn their bread without blocking footpaths. Again, a very good idea as well as a very practical idea. Both these ideas are very practical. Both these ideas will help improve the situation, and that is the reason you should mark both in this particular case. Moving on to the next and the last question. Many medical and engineering graduates are taking up jobs in administrating services and in banks. Well, I don't know that much about medical, but a lot of engineering graduates are doing that. But once again, the biggest mistake that you can make in such sort of questions is going by assumptions or going by facts that you think you know. You have to consider the given statement as true. So even if you know that no medical guy is taking up job in administrative services and banks, you have to assume that the statement given is true. Based upon that, what course of action would you recommend to be followed? First course of action is all the professions should be advised to refrain from taking up such jobs. Okay. The second statement says the government should appoint a committee to find out the reason for these professionals taking up such jobs and to suggest remedial measures. See, very clearly, B is a very good idea. It will take care of identifying the problem and suggesting a solution to the problem. So definitely number 2 should be followed. But what about the first one? What is your opinion of the first one? Do you think this can be done? Do you think this is practical? That you can just advise people and tell medical graduates and engineering graduates that you cannot work in banks or you cannot work in administrative services? Well, you can't. That would be like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And this is not something that you should recommend. And the first statement should not be followed. Only the second statement should be followed. I hope that this small but brief session would have given you a rough idea of how to tackle the courses of action questions. Please provide feedback via Twitter at my Twitter handle @RaviHanda. You can also email me on my mail ID, which is ravihanda@gmail.com. Thank you.